Hello, everyone. My name is Marcin Włoczko. I am an iOS engineer at Stoic. And today I want to show you some easy ways how to expose your app to the system. I want to start by telling you what an Stoic application is, how we integrated our app with the system, and why we did that. So Stoic is a journaling application that helps you understand your emotions, provides you insights on how to be happier, more productive, or overcome your obstacles. So from the beginning, the Stoic application was deeply integrated with the Apple ecosystem. There is no account required to use our application. We store every entries from the user inside core data, and those information are synchronized between user devices using CloudKit. We are available on almost every Apple platform that is, except CarPlay and tvOS. For the tvOS, we have a task on our roadmap to do it at some point, but we never have a time to do it. But sometime we will do it. And at the beginning, I want to ask you, how many of you have already implemented some kind of system integration? By system integration, I mean some widgets, or maybe you created some shortcut, share extension, or stuff like that. Okay, nice. So we have quite experienced audience today. But I have one more question, harder. That how many of you have delivered some new OS features on launch date? So when Apple released probably, for example, new iOS with some new features, you also prepared that features for the release date of that OS. Only Stoic hands up, one guy, perfect. I'm asking you because we as a Stoic team, at some point we decided that we want to go even further, that we want to be up to date with the newest OS features out there. So throughout the last years, we integrated journaling suggestions. So our users have an alternative to an Apple Journal app, so they can write about their personal events inside Stoic. We've already prepared an Apple Intelligence support, even though we have no idea how it will work. Yeah, right. So we also adjusted our app to Vision OS on the release date of the new platform. But why we are doing that, and why I think it's worth for you to try this? So first obvious reason is that you just give a better experience with your application. You make your application and the system works as one. Second reason is more from the business perspective, is that you can grow by being featured by Apple in App Store. So Stoic basically makes money from subscription, and we rely on organic growth. And being featured by App Store, by being featured on App Store, is a huge boost for us. So you can also try this system to reach new audience, because Apple is really happy to showcase applications that already applied some system features that they are releasing. They're always showing, okay, take a look, we had a new system feature like journaling suggestion. And here's an application that you can make already use this feature at. So what I will cover up today? I will tell you more about app shortcuts, Spotlight integration, and share extension. I decided to choose these specific integrations because they might be very easy to implement, so lazy solutions are the best. App shortcuts and Spotlight will also work with Apple Intelligence. We, again, don't know exactly how, but you can leverage them with Apple Intelligence, so you benefit twice. I will also talk about share extension because this is very Apple core extension that is on the platform for many years. And this is basically something very popular that if you want to share a photo with your friend, you go to a photo library, search for a photo, and then share it with your friend. I will not cover up widgets today. Widgets are very powerful, but this is so big topic that it could be a separate talk. And I also wanted to show you something less popular. So let's start with app shortcuts. App shortcuts are app functionalities that you get accessible outside of the application. Oh, I forgot to click. They were redesigned in iOS 16, and from iOS 16, the API is much more friendly and much more powerful. They are instant accessible from the moment the person installed the application. So this is great benefit. This is so customizable that it's worth to add to almost every application. One more reason to do them is that they appear in many places across the system. Powerful user can use them in Shortcuts app. You can call them with Siri. You can assign them to action button. And they are also appearing in Spotlight results. So before we start creating an actual shortcut, we need to define what should be of a shortcut of our application. Shortcut should be a core feature of your application. It should be something that people are often using, and it can be obvious for them that something like that would exist. This is best to represent, it should be representation of a single action in your application. It's some single action the user can perform. And yet, it had to be straightforward, something that is quite simple and understandable to the user. So let's say we have a meditation application. So the core feature of that application would be to just start some specific type of meditation. If you have a note app, maybe it would be good to display a favorite tab with a favorite notes, or have a shortcut that allows user to create a note outside of the application. If you want to learn more about how to design perfect app shortcuts, I really encourage you to take a look at Design App Shortcuts from WWDC, because this is great video and tell you much more about it than I. So in Stoic, one of the core feature is starting to write a new journal. So today we will cover this simple scenario. First, we need to create a shortcut. We will use App Intent Framework, which is a framework that allows you to integrate with Siri, with Shortcuts app, and many others. And we will create a shortcut that will start our journal. So we name it Start New Journal Entry Intent. And intent is basically a representation of our action. We need to provide a title of our action. It would be Start a New Journal Entry with a detailed description. Then we have to implement perform method, which is basically an action itself. So when you add your app intent to your main app target, the shortcut will run on your main app process. So you have access to every instance of your application when the shortcut is running. So all you need is a deep link system that will navigate and tell your application, okay, so open a new journal entry for me. Next, we need to tell the system that our shortcut is opening an app. In order to do that, we set open app when run to true, and that's it. If you are not familiar with dependency macro, this is the dependency injection system in app intents, and you just call app dependency manager with a proper instance of your deep link handler. We have our intent done. Now we have to tell the system that we have something like that. We do it by creating app shortcuts provider. It provides a list of maximum of 10 shortcuts. All we have to do, we create an instance, we pass an intent. In this case, it would be start new journal entry intent. Then we have to pass a phrase. Phrase is the sentence that user may want to say in order to run this shortcut throughout the Siri. Keep in mind that you need to provide an application name. The app intent framework is quite tricky because it is not the regular classes like anything else that is compiled. This is a separate build phase that is run after your code is compiled, and it extracts shortcuts from there. I don't know why exactly, but if you do not provide application name, for example, your shortcut will not appear in Spotlight. You also need to provide short title and system image. They are not required in every iOS version, but also always provide them to make sure that will always appear. If your application supports many languages, put your phrases translation into app shortcut strings, but you only put their phrases, nothing else. And that's it. Our shortcut is done. We now can open a new entry from this is Spotlight. Okay, so app intents are a great way to start system integration. They are quite easy to understand. This is new API, and it's very powerful. It increases your app discoverability a lot because it appears in many places, and you can easily leverage to Apple Intelligence. You want to take a look more about this into it? Take a look at bring your app core features to the user with app intents. There are information how to apply your shortcuts to Apple Intelligence, because some of the Apple Intelligence features are basically just a shortcut. And beside of that, there is second video dive into app intents that cover up the whole API. So now let's jump into Spotlight. Apple allows you to showcase content from your app to the system by indexing in its Spotlight. It is basically a good practice to showcase every content that user might want to look for inside your application. But keep in mind that to not expose fragile data. In Stoic, we have this conversation that our users are writing journals inside our application. They maybe are writing journal about a partner that is also using his phone. So we don't want to see a partner reading our diaries about themselves. So we decided to make this feature opt-in. So this is not everyone is forced to see these journal entries. This API is very customizable. You can provide a lot of different types of information. You can provide a custom content, photos, file, location, and many others. And now let's talk about implementation. The Spotlight integration is perfect for applications that are using core data. This is because it requires only a few lines of code to make it work. It has an automatic system that automatically updates Spotlight index every time that your core data changes. And it doesn't require a separate extension. It works on a process, so it's quite straightforward. Core data Spotlight delegate is a class that do the whole heavy work for you. This is responsible to tell the Spotlight that, okay, there was some new data that was updated or inserted, deleted, and do it for you. So how do we set it up? We go to your database stack. We load a persistent store as usual. And then when it's done, you create an core data Spotlight delegate instance and just run it by calling start Spotlight indexing method. And that's it. We are basically done, and our stack is running. As you can see, I'm using Spotlight delegate. This is a subclass of core data Spotlight delegate, and I will tell you more about it in a second. But before that, there is one thing I need you to mention to you. It only works for storage that are working with SQLite, and you need to enable persistent history tracking. Okay, now we need to choose when we want to update Spotlight index. So in Stoic, we have journal entry. Let's say we have a timestamp, title, and a text. And every time any of this property is changed, we want this change to be reflected inside Spotlight. All what we have to do is we need to select attribute we are interested in indexing, and selecting index in Spotlight checkbox. We don't have to make any changes inside entity itself, because the system automatically knows that if any of its attributes has selected this checkbox, it will know that, okay, I need to update this information. Now, how to customize an item that is appearing inside Spotlight. So this is the reason why I'm subclassing the NSCoreData Spotlight delegate, because it has a method attribute set for an object, for a managed object, that returns a CS searchable item attribute set. This is the method where you convert your managed object into something that Spotlight could read. So for our journal, we create a CS searchable item attribute set. We set an identifier, display name, which would be basically a title. And then you can provide a bunch of other properties that are available on this set. There's over 100 of properties. You can take a look of full list what you can provide there, but basically you can pass their keywords, location, thumbnail URL, and much more. And just provide as many information as you can, because it will increase the experience when searching. This is the thing I almost forgot about it when I was doing it in Stoic, that if you display something, you also have to respond to this action. So in SceneDelegate, in continue with user activity, you just take out the information about what was selected. And as user activity contains information about URL to the item in core data, you just fetch this data and passes to our deep link system to display it. Done. Next integration is ready to go. So it will allow you to find content from your app in the Spotlight. It is quite easy to implement. There was not too much code to do. It is more like choosing what we want to show and how. And it also has an Apple Intelligence support with no more work. As usual, learn more in these links. Okay, so now you want to ask, okay, but I have an app that works with backend, or I'm storing my data inside user defaults. What should I do? So you can do everything you want. You can update Spotlight index on your own. You can tell it that, okay, here is the data that I want to insert. This one was changed, or this one was deleted. You can do on all the manual work if you want it. But I would say that basically it's quite complex job to do, because in case you have backend application that is working with backend, you probably have also an Android app or web app that also are doing changes to the same record as you. So you need to reflect those information inside Spotlight. So it is really hard to make this data up to date. I would say that Spotlight integration is basically suited for core data, because there is no dynamic way to provide information to Spotlight at the time user is typing. You have to prepare this information before user opened a Spotlight. But if you want to try, you can always take a look at CS searchable index, which is a class that allows you to manage index manually, and core Spotlight delegate extension, which is a separate extension working in the background that regenerate information in the index on demand, but this is not on your demand, it is on system demand. So you have no control over when it's running. Now, for the dessert, we have share extension. So share extension allows users to open. Share extension is open every time user tries to share some content. It provides a convenient way to feed your app with the content, and is simple and quick to use. To add share extension, we go to the Xcode project, we select a separate target, search for share extension, that's it. And then Xcode will provide us with a separate directory at the top level with a default configuration. First, we need to decide which data we want to support in this share sheet, when it should appear. So we go into the info list file of this share extension. We take a look at NS extension activation rule, which right now has a property true predicate. This means that we support right now every type of information that could be handled by share sheet. I want to support only text, image with maximum count of 10, and a web URL, only one. So there is one thing to mention. This is quite old extension, and it used this ancient technology called storyboard. So we can get rid of it. As you see, there is NS extension main storyboard. We can remove that and replace with NS extension principal class with name of our share extension and that share view controller. So now it's time to customize appearance of our share sheet. As you could take a look at the different implementation, you can see that this is implementation of a share sheet that allows you to post content to your social media app. So if you have a social media app, you are done. But if not, we can remove it all and just replace it with a custom UI view controller where you can design any UI you want. But keep in mind that it's the best to make it very simple, so it's easy to use. Now it's time to access the data that was shared with us. This API is not very friendly. Any type of data we access a bit different. There is this extension context property on a UI view controller, which allows you to access input items, and this is there are things related to the extension, the share extension. You access the text by accessing attributed content text. If you want to take out URL, you have to take a look at attachments, and then you need to check what type of data do we have using has item conforming to the type identifier, and use load method to load our URL. If you wanna support different type of files, images, videos, you have to check what type of data are we dealing with. And then we use load file representation. But it's worth mentioning that this method is creating only a temporary file that can be only accessed inside this closure. At the moment this closure is end, the file is gone. Because now we start with the tricky part. So how do we save our data? Sure. So when you have your app, this app has disk space and memory space that it used to save some information, access a user defaults or files. But so now we have a share extension. This is a separate app process. This is a separate process. So we want to read the same information that our application is reading. But unfortunately, it's not possible. By default, share extension and app process, share extension and app, there are different processes. So share extension has its own disk space and memory space. In order to make it work, we need to create a common directory called app group that is allowing us to share data between different processes. So right now we are ready to exchange information between those two processes. Of course, you can decide what data you want to move into the app group. There is no need to extract every type of information you have. You can always have a separate disk space for a app group and your application. So let's start with application using backend. So how do we save this data? First, this is very simple. We just perform backend call as usual. And then we call extension context completion request to let know share extension that we are basically done with our job. And if there is need, you can always use app group to share some information between share extension and your application. So now take a look at core data storage. So we need to start by migrating our storage to app group. Then reflects those background changes to the database in our application. So when you are designing an iOS applications that are only using data locally, so using core data, you not expect this data to change outside of the application. So for example, if your user has opened list of all his journal entries, you are not expecting this data to change. But when you are handling share extension, now you have to expect such type of changes. So this is possible. You need to enable NS persistent store remote change notification. So right now, that every time share extension is doing some changes to your database, you are notified about this in your main application. Next step is you need to fetch what was changed and merge those changes into NS managed object context. This is not too complex task, but it requires some additional work to do. But I would say that it is worth doing it, because if you've done it once, you have now opened the door to all other integrations that are there. One done system, you can use it in every type of integration, like probably widgets. If you want to learn more, take a look at these articles. So now let's summarize what I said. So there are system integration that might be easy to implement. The base depends on what type of storage you are using. It provides a better app experience, and it increases discoverability of your app throughout the system. Of course, there is much more system integration that you can do. You can always create, maybe support some new platform like macOS or Vision OS. And this is especially worth doing because in App Store Connect, you can submit your own app featuring. So if you've done some new integration, maybe support a new app, a new platform, or just create a new feature inside the application, you can tell Apple, hey, we have something like that. Maybe you want to feature us. And you can do it by using App Store Connect. And also, if you want to learn more, take a look at enhancements to the App Store featuring process. Okay, so we are done. Now is the time for questions. I'm not sure if I heard correctly, but you are asking me how much system integration increased discoverability of an app, so I don't have access to this kind of analytics. I don't know exactly how many people are using those integration. I only could say that being featured by Apple is increasing a lot our downloads of our application. So I haven't seen such option. Okay, sorry, I forgot. I have to repeat the question. So the question was if there is possibility to prioritize your results in Spotlight. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that there is no such option. I think that this is the system that decides which data is more important than the other. So there was no a big think process behind it. We just are looking what our user can make use from. So we are like, okay, there is some new API that will go with the next iOS, that will be released in the new iOS. And we're like, okay, maybe our user would like to use these features. And we're like, okay, let's do it. Let's check if this is hard to do, if we are able to do it. Our goal is just to provide the best app experience that we can. So yes, if you create more complex shortcuts, they can have parameters that could be pre-filled or not. You can allow user to choose on their own, or you can pre-fill them. And there is a lot of different type of customization that you can do with a shortcut. So these schemas that are supported by Apple Intelligence, they are all optional. Like all parameters of the schemas that are app shortcuts are optional. So I guess that probably Apple Intelligence itself would be intelligent enough to, if we have a photo and we have a create journal intent. This is one of the schemas that are inside the Apple Intelligence new API. It probably would be smart enough to just take that photo and put it inside the shortcut itself. But I'm not sure if user don't provide this photo, we can pre-fill this image property by ourselves. I guess no. Okay, app shortcuts for sure are working with Sweet Data. With Core Spotlight, I was looking that there is a specialized attribute that you can set to your Swift Data object, to Swift Data object and its attribute. But from I read, it's just not working. There is an attribute Service Spotlight integrate with Spotlight, but it's probably not working. And share extension, yeah, it would also work with Swift Data because you load database however you want. I guess that it's even easier to integrate it. I think there is some kind of better initializer that allows you to perform this migration of the database storage from the system, from your app disk space to the app group.